everybody, and welcome to a very special video. This video is special for a couple of very important reasons. First and foremost, it sort of commemorates my doing these videos for about 2 years now. It's been a very long road, but very, very exciting. I have had a great time, and I hope that you all have as well. The second reason that this is special, it's also the first time that I'm going to be putting some very important information and also some images along with my games. I'm going to be putting not only images of the pieces in play, but also potentially, depending on which game it is, showing the pieces directly to the camera so that you guys can get a better idea of how the games work, how they function, and what they look like, all that kind of stuff. In addition, as a second part to that, at the end of each of the games, during the little description with the text, I'm going to be putting links, little notes in, that link to both Board Game Geek and Amazon, so that you guys can look at the games yourselves much more easily, and you don't have to worry about doing searches and all that kind of stuff. In addition, as part of that, I'm going back now and I'm going through all of my previous videos and putting those same notes into each of the videos because I can do it retroactively, and that's what I'm doing for all of them. The other very special thing is this represents a first that I might do later on in the future as well, which is completely revamping one of my old videos. The video that I'm going to be revamping is the heavily strategic games. Now, some of you may have seen it and been like, oh yay, oh nay, whatever it happens to be. But part of the problem was that at the time, I had two major hang-ups with making these videos. I wanted to own the game, just outright, and second, I really was very uncomfortable talking about games that I didn't own, or much less have played. And I mean, obviously those two are linked, but the problem is that it greatly limited the number of games that I would talk about. And now, there are two things that have greatly expanded that. The first thing is the fact that I am now much more comfortable talking about games that I don't own, but have played. And second, I have also greatly expanded my own personal library as well. So with that, I will be talking about games that I do own, but these are much more heavily strategic and fit in the category a lot more effectively. So with that, I hope that you all enjoy this video, my first of what could potentially be several revamps of previous ones, my top 5 heavily strategic games. We're going to go ahead and get started off with a couple of honorable mentions. Games on my honorable mentions for this particular list have one thing in common, in that they are only playable with 2 players. One thing that I like to see in the very heavily strategic games is to be able to play with more people. The more people you have, the more that you have to keep track of. And that's one thing that I really see in a lot of strategy, is if you have a lot more to keep track of, then it becomes much more important, the decisions that you make and how you make them. But I digress. The very first of my honorable mentions is Hive. This is a really fun but exceedingly simple game. Again, it's only for 2 players, and you essentially have white tiles and black tiles. And it's really, in the end, extremely similar to chess, where the idea is that you have different pieces, you've got different insects essentially, and each of them are capable of moving around the board in different ways. You start off by just simply having 2 pieces connected to one another, and then you can either move a piece or you can place a piece on your turn, and that's how the entire game goes. Each thing moves in different ways. It's a very fast game to play, but it involves some extremely great strategy. Because again, it's like chess. It's a very simplistic game on its surface. It's an easy game to play, it's easy to pick up, and it's easy for pretty much anybody to actually play. But in order to win, you really have to look and focus and see, what's my opponent going to do? What are they planning? Do they still have tiles they can put out? Things like that. All of those sorts of things become extremely important in this game. It's quick to play, it's a lot of fun, it's very portable. It actually comes with a little bag that holds all of the pieces in it, and it's got an expansion. Unfortunately, I don't have that. But the reason that this is just an honorable mention is for what I mentioned earlier, where it is only 2 players, and also while there is multitasking to the extent of you can look at all of the different bugs, in the end, that's all that you're doing, is you're placing and moving the bugs around. But it is still very heavily strategic and a lot of fun. Highly recommended. Hive, my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention is a game that couldn't get kicked off this list if anybody tried their hardest. It is one of my favorite games and currently the top ranked game on BoardGameGeek.com, Twilight Struggle. This is an absolutely incredible game. It is massive. There's so much to keep track of. You've got cards, you've got the little flags representing influence, you've got scoring throughout the game that comes at semi-random times, so you have to potentially think, when is this going to happen? When are they going to play that particular card that's going to make this occur? All of that kind of stuff. You have to think, is it time for me to let go of this particular region and start to focus on other locations? All of those kinds of things. There is a ton of minute strategy in this. There's a lot going on. There is a lot to keep track of, but it's a really, really great game in the end. But again, an honorable mention for the simple reason that you can only play it with 2 people. So while the strategy is certainly there, and you've got a ton of strategy, don't get me wrong, it is limited in its capacity simply because only 2 people. Takes a long time to play, takes a long time to set up and break down, but that's a pretty common theme throughout all of the games that I'm going to be talking about, or at least the ones on the main list. But regardless, Twilight Struggle, still one of my honorable mentions for a very nice, heavy, strategic game. Number 5, I've got a game that is an extremely popular one from my favorite publisher of all time. The game itself is Agricola, or Agricola, however you wish to pronounce it. It's a surprisingly deep game because on the surface of it you think, well, it's a game about farming. Okay, that doesn't sound too strategic, but the thing is it's so much more than that, because not only do you have to farm, but you're raising livestock, you're taking care of your family, you have to build pens, you have to make sure there's enough food to feed everybody, you have to get new technology so that you can better maintain your crops, maintain your livestock, all of that kind of stuff. There are so many pieces, there are so many little things inside of this. Here, you can even hear it. There's so much going on in here, it is absolutely ridiculous. You've got cards, you've got tiles, you've got player cards, you've got all of these different things. And on top of that, you actually have a solo mechanic, which is also one of my personal favorite aspects to this game. But the thing is that this is actually one of the shorter games as far as heavily strategic games go. It depends on how many players you've got, just like many of the games do. But I mean, typically, if everybody knows how to play, you're probably looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours. Basically, which is relatively on the short side. But either way, it's a really fun game. There's a ton of paths to victory, which is something that you'll see throughout the games here. And it's just a really, really great game, very heavily strategic, lots of little minute things to keep track of, which to me is what strategy is all about, in the case of board games at least. So with that, Agricola, whatever you want to pronounce it as, is my number 5. Number 4, I've got a game that's all about building up a village to earn favor of the king. The game itself is Caelus. This is a really, really great example of what's called a worker placement game. The idea here is that each player has individual tokens that you can put on different parts of the board. Each section of the board has a different function where, depending on where you put your worker, they do a different thing, whether it's building a building or earning money from the king, whatever it happens to be at the time. And there is a ridiculous amount of strategy because not only are there different places where you can put your workers, but you also have to pay attention to things like the turn order, because you can potentially look at your opponents that are going after you and saying, what are they going to try to do? Should I try to block them? Should I try to do the thing that I know I need to do? Or I'm pretty okay, I know they have to do this thing, so should I go ahead and do it just to make sure that they can't? All of that kind of stuff. In addition, it's not only important important to figure out what you're doing, but also the exact timing of when you do it. There's an incredible amount of, again, very minute strategy with this, which is something that I really love about these types of games. Because on the surface, it seems relatively simple. It's, you know, it's a game where you build buildings and you earn points. But the problem is, in order to do that, you need to focus a great deal, not only on what you are doing, but what your opponents are doing, because potentially you can run into a lot of conflicts with your other opponents. It's just a great game. It's a ton of fun. It's actually another one that's relatively short compared to some of the other ones, but still a really great game. Nice and small too, which is always very helpful. Lots of fun to play, fairly easy to learn. Kalis, my number 4. At number 3, I finally have a game that's going to make many people happy for this particular video. It's one that I have been wanting to get for a very long time and haven't been able to play until I finally got it. The game itself is Axis and Allies. The particular version that I have is the Europe 1940 2nd edition. I know there's all sorts of other editions. There's like Europe 1941, there's Pacific 1940, etc, etc, etc. But I happen to have Europe 1940. Incidentally, before I really get started on it, one of the things I love about this game is the way that it's packaged. Because one thing that you have inside of the game are individual boxes containing all of the pieces. And on those boxes it says what each country starts with on the board. It is so unbelievably helpful, especially for a game like this that ends up being so complex, so difficult to keep track of, and all of that kind of stuff. Now, I know a lot of people will maybe might think of this as similar to Risk, and in a big way this is similar to Risk, but it's really like Risk on steroids, because you do have the movement of troops, you've got land collection, you've got all that kind of stuff, but you have so much more. In this case, you have so many different types of troops, you've got different setups, and that's part of why there are a bunch of different games, because you've got different starting points. You've got all of the aspects of potentially doing cooperative motions with your opponents, because it is Axis and Allies, and you can play as a bunch of different people. I think it plays up to 5 or 6 at least. 5, yeah. But it's just ridiculous. There are so many miniatures that represent all sorts of different aspects of combat, from planes to troops to boats to all that kind of stuff. There is a lot of strategy with regard to how you're going to attack your opponent, whether you're going to do a direct attack, whether you're going to do the sort of backstabby, oh, I'm totally not going to attack you type of thing. Whatever it happens to be, it is ridiculous, but it is so much fun. And I am very upset at myself that I wasn't able to play it sooner. But regardless, it is now on this list exactly where it belongs. Number 3, Axis and Allies. At number 2, I have another returning member from my previous list that still definitely deserves a spot here. It is Game of Thrones, the board game. The reason that this still earns a spot on the list is, well, for one thing, it was top spot on the previous time around, but it is still a wonderful strategy game, regardless of how you slice it. There is a lot of, again, it's always about minute strategy in this, but particularly with a Game of Thrones, when you're talking about control of the Iron Throne and the sword and the Raven and all those kinds of things, so that you can see just a little bit, you've got a little bit of an advantage over your opponents, at least for the time being. Is it worth it to maintain that? Is it worth it to give it up to somebody else so that you can focus on other things? You have the idea of the support system, which is where a lot of the strategy and the negotiation and cooperativity comes into play. I mean, this is just a combination of so many great strategic elements that you really cannot not have this on a great strategic game list. It's wonderful. It's absolutely amazing. You've got your land control, you've got your different units, you've got negotiation with the other players, you have the outsiders, the so-called NPCs that go in and attack everybody else. It's just, it's a great game with a lot of different mechanics that meld very, very well together. So definitely a very deserving number 2, A Game of Thrones. My number 1 is a game that can easily beat out all of the other games in a simple box-to-box combat. It is the largest game that I personally own, and more than likely one of the largest games that are currently in production now, and it is Twilight Imperium. Now, knowing now that I own this, is there really any other option for the top spot of a strategic game? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Not only does this have all of the elements of pretty much all of the other games I've discussed combined, that is to say, you've got control, you've got economics, you've got the different units, you've got combat, you've got technology, you've got all sorts of stuff, all of these amazing mechanics melded into one giant gelatinous blob that is Twilight Imperium. It's just ridiculous. It's insane to think about. It boggles the mind that something like this is actually possible in a board game. It is so massive, it's so ridiculous, but the thing is, again, just like with some of the other games, this is certainly not one of those ones that is very, very short to play. This, in fact, is also the longest game. It's not only the physically largest, but it's also the most mentally exhausting, because this game will probably take you a good 6, 7, maybe 8 hours, depending on your gaming group. It is absolutely insane, but if you can really get it going, if you can really get into it, it is well worth it. One of the aspects of this game that I really, really enjoy is the fact that the idea of politics and negotiation and things like that is not only encouraged within the game, but it's actually a separate game mechanic where you've got the politics cards, you can sign new resolutions, trade agreements, all that kind of stuff. It's just ridiculous. There is so much to this game. There is no way that I could pick anything else for my number 1, Twilight Imperium. Thank you very much for watching the first of my revamped videos, this one being the heavily strategic games. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Most importantly, I hope that you all enjoyed some of the changes that I made. Now that said, just like with all of my other videos, I certainly haven't heard of all of the games that are out there, much less have played all of them, so please feel free, go ahead and put your favorite games in the comments below. I love to hear all your suggestions. Axis and Allies is one of the biggest things that I got from people's suggestions, and it was absolutely incredible. So please let me know more about what you all think, what you all recommend, and all of those good things. But with that, thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you enjoyed my little bit of a 2-year anniversary for my videos. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time. I hope that you all enjoyed my revamped heavily strategic board games video. As always, please feel free to put your personal favorites in the comments below, and be sure to tell me whether or not you enjoyed it or not, what you'd like to see more or less of, all of those types of things. In addition, you can see a couple of my other videos posted at the top of the page here, and if you want to see more in the future, as always, go ahead and click that big giant subscribe button. But either way, I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.